BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Phil Goodlad and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. It's the news, the views, the analysis, everything you need from our beautiful game. It's Tuesday the 26th of August and it's crunch night as far as Celtic's concerned.
If you think so much of the consequence, then it can paralyse you. And that's not something we want to do. We have to play our game, play the football that we've played in a lot of the league games this year, and if we can take that into the game, then we've got a fantastic chance of qualification.
After a goalless first leg, Brendan Rodgers says he knows what tonight's match means. Celtic return to scoring form, of course, domestically on Saturday.
Oh, my distance, brilliantly fitted across, and it's finished by Kenny. And all of a sudden, it's oh so simple for the champions.
But have they got enough to get past Kairat? And Steve Clarke names his squad for the World Cup qualifiers that begin in just over a week's time.
I look at that squad, it's got a lot of good experience in it, players that know how to qualify for major tournaments, and hopefully we can do that again.
Let's show over who's in and who has missed out.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
So, welcome along. A busy day, a busy week, a busy fortnight in Scottish football. I'm delighted to say that Gordon Waddell, the football writer, joins us. Gordon, morning to you.
Good morning, Phil. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And we also have Cillian Sheridan, the former Celtic striker, amongst others. But Cillian, I less want to speak football with you first up and more. This is the first time that I've spoken to you since a rather obscure social media posting was put up by somebody purporting to be yourself, who said he was out for a walk in Edinburgh one morning, bumped into a certain Gallagher brother, asked him for a couple of tickets for the concert, and he gave them to you. Did somebody hack into your account, or is this an accurate description of what happened?
It's just a good story, isn't it?
But is it true?
I don't want to ruin it. I don't want to ruin the magic. I don't want to ruin the magic of the story or the hope that it might give the people.
Tell me this was true, because I'll be honest with you, there's not much from Scottish football I share with my wife on social media, trust me. But even she saw when I said, look at this. I speak to this guy on the podcast and he's asked Liam Gallagher for a ticket.
I can't remember if it was Liam or Noel. I don't know. Was it? I think it might have been Liam. I think it was Liam on one day and then Noel the next day. I'm not sure.
Oh, come on. Listen, we've not even played a European match this week and already I'm disappointed for Scottish football. Well, there we are. We've bust one myth already. God, it could be a very long 20 minutes if this is the way we're going to start. Let's start then with Celtic in Kazakhstan. I'm fed up going down the journalistic cliche-ridden route of this being a massive match so early in the season. But I guess, Gordon, we can't call it any other way for Celtic.
I was having a conversation the other day trying to think back over all the campaigns that we have started with this high wire act of Celtic's manager versus Celtic's board of investment to get to the Champions League rather than investment when you get to the Champions League. And it feels very similar to so many campaigns where Brendan Rodgers, in this instance, obviously is trying to, put some, or has been trying to put some pressure on the board. There have been mutterings about, about discontent over the team. You look at the team that he picked in between the games on Saturday, and it looked lightweight. They got away with it. It actually reminded me very much of the 2018 campaign when they went out to AEK Athens and he fielded a weakened team against Hearts in between, as if he's trying to prove a point, saying, "Look, this is all you've left me with." And they lost to Hearts that day and went out to AEK Athens. But yeah, it just, again, it feels like this constant kind of balancing act, and that they seem to want to refuse to invest in getting to the Champions League, but are quite happy to take the riches when they get there. They've gone through so many campaigns like this where they get to this point and the riches are on offer. Obviously you're now talking, 40, 50 million quid coming in from these things. And you can sense Brendan Rodgers' frustration that he's not quite got what he wants. They've never really replaced Kyogo, and that's now 8 months down the line. They've not replaced Kuhn since they sold him particularly, and obviously Jota is injured, so they're light in the wide areas. It'll be interesting to see what he does now. But there's also this element where you think, are the board holding back here because they don't necessarily trust him with another £10 million investment after the uncertainty over Ida last year and Engels last year. So it always seems a constant high wire act for them, and I don't. I think they will get through it, but again, it's just this kind of constant borderline that they're on when it comes to this, rather than just saying, you know what, let's go for it. This is too important not for us, for us not to get through.
Cillian, I'll come to you in just one moment. Gordon, can I just pick up on something that Brendan Rodgers said last week? Because I've either put too much on it, or I'm surprised that others haven't. Brendan Rodgers said in his post-match after the 0-0 draw that he'd be here for 3 years. Now, was that an admission that he will be leaving at the end of the season, or was it him just stating that he said he would be here for 3 years and he will be here for 3 years and potentially beyond? But my ears pricked up on that, and I thought, has he just said that he's going to just be here for the term of his original contract?
Again, this is this game of cat and mouse with the board. That's what I'm saying. He comes out sometimes with little things after games where he'll talk about what he's missing, and he'll be couched in a certain way with Brendan sometimes. But again, it's this thing where there's a bit of debate over, will he sign a new contract? Will he be gone at the end of this year? Does it depend on whether they get into the Champions League? Is he trying to say, you're not backing me here, so I'm kind of threatening you by saying I'm gone at the end of the season? He's a very, very clever, shrewd operator, Brendan. He doesn't say things that are just said out of turn. If he's saying something like that, then there's a meaning in it to somebody, whether it's to Dermot Desmond, whether it's to Peter Lawwell, or whoever it's intended for. He's saying it for a reason. And I do get the feeling that you're right that there's significance in it. I suspect you're more right in the fact that I saw some people interpreting it saying he's trying to kind of allay any fears that he would do another Leicester again and bail mid-season. I think it's more than that. I think he's basically saying, look, this period here is very important to me, and unless you back me right now, then I'm definitely going at the end of the season. That's what I took from it, but not necessarily that he's trying to reassure anybody. I saw it more as a threat than a reassurance, but you can't tell with him sometimes.
I mean, Cillian, you've been at Parkhead as a player. You will know what it's like to be in the dressing room when all this noise is happening, both with a focus on the pitch and in the boardroom. What's your take on what we're seeing so far this season in and around in and around Celtic Park, but also just in and around what supporters must be making of this?
I think they'll probably be separated from what's going on the pitch for themselves, like everyday training and stuff. It's not really a club as big as Celtic. A small little problem can be magnified and it becomes a big thing. I think players that are there, have been there for a few years, know what it's about, know what it's like. I think Brendan Rodgers will be telling them that as well, like just ignore all this outside noise. And kind of the biggest thing I've found is it's not like it's all coming into a place that's struggling and they haven't been successful. This is still a successful team that's done really well over the past few seasons, and it kind of makes that bit where as soon as there is a small little some small little problem there, it kind of needs to be made bigger because it can't all be this good.
But this isn't a small problem, is it? This is a manager openly critical of the board and laying down the gauntlet to the board by saying we need players in.
At the minute, I think it's a small problem. I think it can become. It's a big. I get that it's a big gamble to not fully invest into the squad before these qualifiers. But Celtic could come out from the game this evening, they've qualified, and then the board can go and spend. It looks like there are some players coming in between now and over the next few days. But I can't help but feel there is a little bit of over-exaggeration of what's actually the issues that are going on at Celtic.
Well, I mean, Brendan Rodgers seemed in relaxed manner yesterday when the media spoke to him ahead of the game out in Astana. From a footballing point of view, Gordon, does Adam Ida start tonight? I feel if there's anybody who has pressure heaped on him with this situation at Celtic, it has to be the £9 million striker.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what he does tonight, because obviously he didn't impress in the first leg, and you end up looking at the options and the choices that he has. Does he start Maeda through the middle? Does he leave himself light on the sides at that point? Does he put some faith in Ida and hope that he responds to it? Does he give Kenny a go? He was full of praise for Kenny at the weekend and his, and his performance and a kind of cameo. I would say he doesn't do the latter. I would say he has his choices between is probably between Maeda and Ida. And my gut is that he starts with Ida and that he gives him a go here. But he needs to show an awful lot more than he's shown at the moment. He was in the first leg, he was neither sharp in the box nor was he particularly good coming towards the ball. I think this is his problem at the moment, and that he feels that Ida maybe doesn't necessarily fit in. I think he's a good option to have, but I'm not sure he's his ideal first option. And I think this is one of the things that's irking him a little bit, is that he hasn't had anybody come in over the summer that is providing something else for him in that department.
Cillian, I said to the producer when he was in touch yesterday, saying, look, these are the things that we're going to be speaking about. I said, I am not going to question anybody about the 8,000-mile round trip. I'm fed up hearing about this. I'm fed up hearing about the heat, and I'm fed up hearing about the stress because the Almaty players did similar when they came to Glasgow last week. I would, though, like to just ask you as a former player, do you think we in the media and fans in general truly understand the problems for a playing group that such a journey takes out of them, that creates for professional athletes?
No, I don't think it's that big of an issue at all. I think Celtic left. Am I right? Did they leave Sunday or they left Sunday? So they've been there for 2 days before the game. It's not like you're getting off a bus on the same day, or all the travel is being done on the same day. You're getting off a plane and then you're going and playing a game in a few hours. You're over there for at least a day. Normally Celtic are being cautious. They're there for 2 days before the game. I mean, your body adapts. It's not... I really don't think it's that big of an issue.
So we can dispel this. Never again will we talk about an 8,000-mile round trip as having a bearing on it.
No, like you're on a comfortable plane. Most of the time when you're going with a team, you're on a chartered flight. You've kind of it's your own plane. You can be comfortable. There's the time difference could be a slight issue. That you're probably playing at stranger times, but even still, it's at the end of the day. I don't think it's a real excuse. I don't think, from what I've been hearing, Brendan Rodgers, some of the players aren't really taking it as an excuse, or don't want it as an excuse. The weather, that's probably more of an issue. The heat at that time, the humidity. But in terms of when you're going over there and giving yourself so much time to prepare and to adapt, I just don't really buy the actual travel issue itself.
I saw somebody mention that there can be a little bit of an altitude issue. I've not been to Almaty, but I saw somebody say that there was a slight altitude thing which can make a difference. But again, as Cillian says, these guys are prepared to within an inch of their life. They've got a sports science department that have been putting every ounce of their beings into preparing their players for this as well. So, again, and to be, you're right, Brendan Rodgers did say yesterday, no excuses. It's not, this isn't a situation where you can turn around afterwards and offer any of these factors up if you lose this game.
Cillian, who wins tonight? Does Celtic go through?
I think Celtic go through, yeah. I think they should have too much. They'll know, I think, from last week's game exactly what they're up against. Not that they wouldn't have known, but I think they probably know what needs to be done better. Albeit they create a few chances where they'll think that they probably deserved a little bit more than a 0-0. So I think I quite fancy Celtic to go through. Given also what's at stake, I think they've just, not that they needed to be told.
I agree with Cillian. I think they go through, and again, as he said earlier on as well, once you get through, all the issues that are floating around just now kind of dissipate. I don't think they go away completely until the business is done. But if you've got yourself league phase football and you're guaranteed that way until after Christmas, then a lot of the issues that are issues, but they become magnified to an enormous extent if they end up not going through tonight. And all of a sudden, everybody's pointing the fingers and saying, "Well, why wasn't this done? Why have we gambled and gone out when we could have maybe spent some money and gone through it?" It's not that simple. It's but at the same time, I still believe that they'll get done what they need to get done tonight.
Big week of European action ahead. Aberdeen and Hibs to come on Thursday. Rangers tomorrow night. Tonight it all kicks off for the Scottish champions Celtic in the Kazakh capital to take on Almaty. Live coverage, Sports Sound on air with you at 5:30. Remember, it's a tea time kickoff, 5:30. Kenny McIntyre and the team with live coverage of Celtic against Almaty. So Steve Clarke has named his Scotland squad for the games with Denmark and Belarus. Gordon, first things first, I thought that we had weeks to go until the World Cup qualifiers started. Actually, it's only next week. It seems unbelievable. We start in Copenhagen and then it's off to Belarus. 2 winnable games, but unfortunately 2 losable games as well.
I mean, it's such a whirlwind campaign. I mean, your whole World Cup can be, is compressed into this 3-month spell, and obviously starting with 2 away games. That it feels high risk in terms of your campaign could be done, by the time the first weekend's over. If you lose one and draw one for the sake of argument, then it's going to be hard to recover from that. So. It does. It suddenly, it's into sharp focus, and you look at the squad getting announced, and again, mainly Steve Clarke has stuck with his tried and trusted, which is his MO and always has been his MO. There are no shocks in the squad. There's a couple of kind of mild eyebrows raised at a couple of the names in there, but most of it is exactly what you would expect it to be. So therefore, he's got faith in the guys who have served them before. They're not in great form, as everybody knows, in terms of our more recent results. But he obviously believes in this squad and this team and doesn't want to shake it up too much.
Which names raised an eyebrow from you?
In a good way. For me, Aaron Hickey being back is great to see. It's been nearly 2 years since his last cap, and it's been a long road for him with this hamstring problem that he's had. But so I'm really, really pleased to see him back. I think he's a significant difference maker at right back. It's not to say that the guys that we've had there haven't been great, but I think in terms of, obviously we had Ralston playing there during the Euros. I think Hickey's a significant upgrade in terms of what you need to do in that role for us. Interesting again, if you look at the quality areas to me of our squad, you look at the fullback areas, you look at the midfield, and you find yourself nodding your head, giving it, I'm reassured by the choices that we have there. Right through the kind of core of the team, though, you're looking at the goalkeeping situation, you're looking at the centre halves, and you're looking at the striking areas, and you're thinking, right, where are is this a strong enough group? Goalkeepers is a problem for us, and as much as Xander Clark's the only one who's playing. Although I still suspect he might play Angus Gunn, even though he hasn't been a regular, and he wasn't a regular in the Norwich team at the tail end of last season, and he certainly he hasn't played at Forest yet. But I still think he might start. Let's bear in mind he did start in the game in June, the Iceland game, before he got before he got emptied off with the injury, and Kieran Slicker came on. So I think he'll play. Dom Hyam was another interesting choice from Blackburn, coming back into the squad. I mean, I think his only cap was a bucket time sub against, was it Norway maybe 2 years ago?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I looked at Dom Hyam and you said back in the squad, and I must admit, and this is terrible from my point of view, I didn't even realise that he'd been capped. I knew that he'd been called into a squad before, but I couldn't remember the fact that he came on for, I think it was something like 70 seconds. So back in, you're right. Cillian, can I touch on you with the goalkeeper, which I apologise, because goalkeeping is not your strong point when it comes to playing. But as a forward, do you have a sense as to how important the goalkeeper and who is Scotland's number one will be to almost put this to bed? Steve Clarke comes out and he says, look, this is my number one for the World Cup qualifiers. Would that, if you were a forward in that Scotland team, would that reassure you that you knew as a group of players, as the manager, that this is my guy and this is our guy to be in between the sticks?
Probably not from myself as another player in the squad. I don't think it would really have that much of an issue. Maybe more if you were a centre half, or you're playing in a position that you need to have a partnership with the goalkeepers. Probably the most beneficial would be potentially the actual goalkeepers, if they all had a clear idea. But then again, you can say it's breeds competition within the squad. If they all think there's a number one slot there available for them all to compete for, then why not? It creates healthy competition. It's probably the one position where you're kind of you don't really know what he's going to do. I know a lot of the talk is that everything seems to be the same with him. He doesn't change too much, whereas that's the one position where there is actually a little bit of mystery over, or you're never quite sure who is going to be the number one. I think at the minute,
how much managing does that take, Cillian, in a squad and in a team, that you are managing players that maybe all feel that they have a shot at getting the jersey, but actually as a squad there is maybe a wee bit of confusion as to who actually is the favoured goalkeeper? It's
probably easier to manage if they all think they have a shot. They're all coming in. There's no one going to be coming into the squad disappointed, or no one coming into the squad a training camp kind of knowing, well, at the end of it, I'm not going to be playing. If every goalkeeper that comes in there thinks, oh well, I've got a chance to play here, they're putting themselves in the window for the full duration. International football is probably a little bit different to club football, where it's not every single day. Players you're coming in for a brief period of time together. I don't think it's that big of an issue in terms of the full squad, how it's going to affect things, where people aren't sure who the number one keeper is. And also it's international football. It's probably the standard goes up a bit. It's not and the keeper who's number two is an inexperienced keeper where you might have a little bit of worry about or apprehension. Whereas I think here, whatever goalkeeper comes in, that you can probably trust them. They are well-established goalkeepers, or probably number ones at their club. So it's probably slightly different feeling.
That's our big problem just now, isn't it? That these guys, aren't necessarily the first pick at their club. I mean, even though Zander Clark's playing, you could argue that he's not first pick at Hearts. Gunn's not first pick at Forest. Kelly's not first pick at Rangers. So you're right. There's competition there. But you're thinking, if I'm Zander Clarke and I'm the only one of these three guys who's actually playing regular football, and I don't get picked ahead of Angus Gunn, who's not playing, then the psychology of that's quite difficult for Clarke as well. I'm not saying he'll assume that he's going to be playing when he comes into the squad, but at the same time, he'll probably be thinking, well, if ever there's a time for me to be getting caps here, it's surely ahead of these two guys who aren't playing. And again, you look at what happened the last time, obviously, as we mentioned earlier on, with the case where Gunn got injured. And that situation that Cillian's talking about there is exactly what happened. And that Slicker comes in and has an absolute nightmare, because he's the inexperienced, the inexperienced backup who hasn't had that these wealth of games where he's played 40 or 50 games in a season yet. So it's a having gone from a period where goalkeeping was one of our absolute strengths, where we had Gordon and McGregor and Marshall and you had three genuine first pick guys, none of whom you would be worried about playing in a game like this. You're now looking at a situation where you're looking at all the goalkeepers giving it, who's our guy here. So I think it's a tough spot. It is a tough spot.
All this to come next week, where the focus will be Scotland in their men's World Cup qualifiers. This week, it's all about Europe, kicking off tonight with Celtic against Almaty. My thanks to Gordon Waddell and to Cillian Sheridan. And Cillian, thank you for bursting the bubble of thinking you could meet a rock and roll superstar on the golf course and get a free ticket to go to a gig at Murrayfield. Thank you for that. Listen, remember, bright and early every morning, new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast Daily will drop for you at your podcast provider. You can also search out BBC Sounds if you want to do it the old-fashioned way and click on play there. For now, though, I'm Phil Goodlad. Enjoy your footballing day ahead, because it could be a big one as far as Scottish football is concerned. I will speak again soon.
It's petty, it's ill-informed.
Are President Trump's cuts having an adverse effect on research?
It's pandemonium.
What number's that in the periodic table?
PD, number 47. I don't know.
I've done the shooting clays before. The longer you do it, the sorer obviously it gets.
When Craig said there he'd been shooting the clays, I imagined him out the back line. Somebody's washing,
William Shatner, his secretary, contacted me to say, when Bill has a question now and again, can he contact you? And then one time he called me up and he wanted to know, David, what is a photon? I'm thinking, this is incredible. Captain Kirk wants to know what a photon is,
I once met a guy who referred to a globe as a ball map. A ball map.
Look at the ball map.
What we normally do is spin the ball map and we see where we go on holiday.
The Off the Ball podcast, available every Monday on BBC Sounds.